Hello everyone, welcome back to LOONY My name is Looney, and welcome to Looney Takes, where I give you my own takes about anything, whether it be video games, anime, so on. And today's Looney take that I want to essentially portray and want to express in this video is something that I actually thought about the last time I streamed, which was when I defeated Pragmata, when I beat Pragmata on lunatic difficulty, thus getting all the achievements that you can get on Steam. And as I was playing through that, there was moments where the difficulty was a lot, where it became a very difficult game, to the point that I got frustrated, to the point I got angry and annoyed. But for me, the annoyance for me didn't come from the fact that the game was hard, that lunatic difficulty was hard, because I played several of the bosses within Pragmata and they weren't that hard, they weren't that difficult to go through. Like the Luna Digger, absolutely one of the easiest boss fights in the game the moment you really see exactly his attack patterns and how you can easily defeat him just based off of that. My issue came from certain different boss fights that really didn't need that much. How should I put this? It was more so an annoying fight because they were just tanky. They were acting like a sponge, where they were able to just, the player was not able to do enough damage. Now that could be just from the fact that I didn't really essentially get the right equipment, the right strategy against some of the bosses, like the Scorpion boss in the bio area, as well as the final boss. And for me, the most difficult challenge from that was just how tanky they were. And to me, I don't necessarily think, and this is my take, that making the hardest difficulty within a game being, oh, the attacks are stronger and they have a lot more health, to the point that they tank a lot of hits, they absorb so many hits. To me, that's not really a proper way to convey a harder difficulty, because at that point it's not a challenge. Yes, there's some skill involved, specifically with that scorpion-like robot that you fight, but when it comes to just constantly dealing so much damage and it not being enough, or it just takes too long to deal so much damage, it comes to the point where, oh, well, now it's not even a challenge anymore. It's just an annoying fight that the robot, the boss, just won't go down, because you're just constantly trying to deplete his health. You don't do enough damage. He has so much more health. He tanks everything. And to me, that's not a good way, in my personal opinion, for any game developer, any dev, to really showcase just how to make a game much more difficult, to make it a harder difficulty. Because it just becomes frustrating. It just consumes so much time. It just creates this boss fight where you're just constantly just praying you finally defeat him, you finally able to get that last hit. And then there will be some times when you're like this close and you're dealing as much damage as possible, but they still won't die. And then you run out of ammo, you run out of something that you need in order to essentially defeat the enemy, and then you're just trying your best to avoid, dodge, and pray that one hit won't kill you. So to me, that's not how you make something more challenging in a video game. You don't have to make each and every boss fight, you don't have to make a harder difficulty where the boss is just tankier and just does a much more damage. Even some of the minor enemies, they were just tanky. Like, they weren't hard to fight, they were just tanky, and they just absorbed so much damage to the point where it just became a little annoying. Now, granted, like I said, it's very possible that I just didn't play it correctly and didn't do enough damage that I could have at that moment from the hack nodes or anything like that. To me, though, I think a harder difficulty, especially when it comes to boss fights or just enemy fights, shouldn't be just increasing their health and increasing their attack power. It should be allowing the devs to create a new moveset for the enemy. You can increase the health, you can increase the attack power, but not to the point where it just becomes annoyingly bad. But allow us, I should say, the player, learn essentially a new boss fight, where the enemy is using new moveset that you don't get in like the normal mode or the easy mode. You see new moves, you see new types of attack patterns, or maybe even using a new defense maneuver where it essentially prevents you from doing like maybe an old strategy that you thought was perfect for this boss fight. To me, that's a lot more challenging. And I understand that can get annoying as well, because why are you fighting a boss that you've beaten before and all of a sudden his moveset changed? I get that. That can be really annoying as well. But I like that kind of challenge. That is the type of challenge that I actually would prefer. Would I get annoyed? Would I get angry? Would I get like really, mad about it? Of course. But that's the thing that for me personally, I think makes a harder difficulty a lot more fun, a lot more challenging than just increasing their health, increasing their defense, and just making their attacks hit harder. Especially when you don't get the opportunity or the weapons or the attack increase as well to help you with that. To me, that's just puts you at a 2-to-1 handicap essentially, and it's not fun that way. I don't find that fun. To me, having a new challenge is creating a new moveset, creating a new way that the boss fights, so that you have to adapt and learn how to fight that new boss. It allows creativity. It allows you to rethink your strategy. It allows you to just find a new challenging way to defeat this boss that you can beat. But now with all this new moveset, now that you increase its health just by a little bit, maybe increase his defense a little bit, his speed, his attack power, but allow him to use a new move or a new moveset that he never used before, combined with his old moveset, now you have a much different challenge. Now you have a much more engaging and a lot more thought-provoking challenge. And to me, that is a lot more fun in a video game, because that makes you want to learn this new moveset. That makes you want to essentially get a much different experience than what you're used to. Like, I always viewed that whenever you beat the game the first time, it's kind of boring when you have to replay it on just a harder difficulty where, the enemy is just tankier and has a lot more health and deals more damage. But you get a new experience by fighting these boss fights or these enemies that have a different moveset. It's a brand new experience. That's what you want. Yes, you want it to be a lot more challenging. You want it to be a lot more, difficult, but not in the way that you increase the health and just increase the attack power and then that's it. You don't create any new moveset. Sometimes you may see a moveset that you probably didn't see before, right? Because you weren't fighting this boss for a long time, and then now in hard mode you see some of the old movesets new movesets that you never seen before. But that's different to what I'm proposing or to what I think makes a better challenge. You don't make those movesets available in those normal and easy modes, but on harder difficulty you program it so that those newer abilities and essentially different techniques, you bring that out in harder difficulty to give the player a new challenge that's a lot more engaging, a lot more fun, and gives the player a new experience. To me, I think more devs should focus on that in terms of creating a harder difficulty for their game. Because at the end of the day, just making them have more health, making them more of a sponge, more tanky, and just not having your weapons deal enough damage to, do enough to the boss fight unless you take a longer time to, complete the boss fight. To me, that's just being repetitive, and you just getting annoyed because you can beat this guy, but you just can't do enough damage, or he's just too tanky, or just has so much more health that it just becomes frustrating. to me, having a new moveset gives players a new experience fighting these new bosses, fighting these new enemies. And to me, that's a much better design for a harder difficulty than the opposite. And there are plenty of games that do that. I think it might be just a Capcom thing, because I do notice that it's also something that they do with Resident Evil, specifically Resident Evil 9. They just make the enemies a lot more a lot more tankier, unless you have the RPG, then you just blast through everything. But with the new DLC that they just released, you see like all these enemies that you face, like a level 20 Victor in the new DLC, the free DLC, the I don't know, Leon Dead, or I forgot what the name of it was, but Leon Must Die, and you see that they're just tanky. They have the same movesets, they do the same thing. You're just trying to blast them as much as you can with all the ammo you collected, and that's not really fun. That's just more of, please, can we get this over with? Oh my god, I just ran out of ammo. Great, now what? I'm gonna go ahead and just start axing him. Like, that's not fun. That's not challenging, or an innovative way to make a harder difficulty more engaging for the player. I think by creating or holding back certain movesets in normal easy mode and then bringing that moveset out in harder difficulty is a much better experience, a much better challenging harder difficulty that I think more companies, more game developers should focus on. Instead of just bringing out all the same movesets, at in normal mode, and so that you see everything except for like maybe the ones that you don't see because you end the fight quicker before you get to see those moves. I think allowing the devs to keep and hold back certain movesets gives the player a new experience. So let me know what you think about this take. I'm very curious to see if that will make things a little bit more challenging and much more engaging for harder difficulty, or do you think the tankier, more spongy like enemies that deal a lot more damage is much better, or is good enough for a harder difficulty? So let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.